Well, hello, good morning, everybody, and welcome to our webinar on fever scanning and thermal imaging. This beautiful rainy morning here from Chobham. Just before we start, we've got a little bit of housekeeping. You can ask your questions throughout using the Q&A button up on the top left-hand side of your screen. And throughout the webinar, we'll also be running some polls, asking some questions of the audience. These should pop up in front of you. If they don't, just hit that button there on the left. If you do have a problem with audio, you can switch to a phone connection by pressing the button down there, bottom left-hand side, and that will allow you to dial in through your telephone. So this is our agenda for today. We're going to do a quick introduction to the company and myself and Mr. Daniels, who are running this webinar. We're then going to go over some fever scanning basics, how it's applied and the types of solutions that we have. We're then going to go into a live demo using a system that is installed up in Bletchley with Mr. Daniels. So we'll see the system working in a semi-live scenario. We can then go through some common questions that we've seen from customers, common questions, concerns, then we can go round to Q&A for the audience to ask their questions. So today, the webinar is run by myself, David Savage, and my colleague, David Daniels. I'm the founder of ITSL Group since 2004. I get involved day to day in the larger projects and the medical side, hence my involvement in this webinar. And Mr. Daniels.
Thank you, David. I'm David Daniels, the sales manager for ITSL Group. I've been in the audio and visual industry for closing in on 20 years and joined ITSL actually right at the beginning of the first lockdown. So I have spent pretty much all of my time within ITSL working on thermal imaging alongside our other projects for standard AV solutions. Good to meet you all.
So just a brief introduction to the company. As I said, it was established in 2004. We work globally, though predominantly in the UK, then mainland Europe, and then we branch out into Asia and North America, where our European-based customers ask us to. We're a capable team, we've got 25 people and growing. We've even grown throughout the pandemic, which I think speaks volumes about the way we're going as a business. We're seen as experts in small, medium enterprise, AV install, contracts and fit out, and we are regularly praised for our ITIL customer-focused support desk. So just a few of the services that we have inside the business. We're predominantly AV system design, consultancy and installation. And second to that is medical AV systems, which is where the thermal imaging and fever scanning comes in. Unsurprisingly, we're quite large in Teams rooms and Zoom rooms, which have seen a very large uptick in interest over the last few months, as you can imagine. Then boardroom automation, so fancy automated boardrooms and AV control, large format LED, digital out-of-home advertising boards, digital signage, which ties into that, and then our support thereafter for all projects and tailored agreements to our customers' needs. So moving on then to the basics of thermal scanning solutions. These are the common denominators for the three solutions that we'll show you. They use two image sensors. One's a visible light camera, and the other one is a thermal infrared camera or sensor. And those images are laid one on top of the other. The visible light camera detects a face in the frame and its orientation. And then from knowing the orientation of the face, the center of the forehead is determined, and then that area from the thermal sensing chip is measured for temperature, and that's what determines the skin temperature of the person in the frame. So the systems themselves detect the skin temperature, not core temperature, Skin temperature is indicative of core temperature, but not exactly bang on. The skin temperature does remain reasonably constant. In fact, very constant, as has been shown in our tests and from other data. But we need to be careful when measuring persons entering our measurement zone from extreme temperatures, which we're saying is below 0 or perhaps 5, and then from above 40 degrees. They need to have some time allowed for their skin to, or for the blood flow to return to normal to their skin, so that they can have their temperature measured accurately.
So we're going to look at some of the applications for the devices that we've been working on for the past 8 months or so. We've worked heavily in a number of different client bases, typically across public areas such as gyms and health clubs. We've installed in the entranceways of gyms so that they can get back to normal and they can monitor the flow of people entering the business. Corporate reception areas are a very popular environment, and this can be a single building for one company, or say for instance group tower blocks in central London. They can be measured as they walk into the entranceway of the main building, or we've seen individual companies throughout the different floors of those buildings place the cameras at their reception desks as well. Restaurants, construction sites and shopping centres. Obviously, shopping centres demand the higher end of system, which we'll come to in a moment. Construction sites can bring some issues, because typically they are wanting to scan people entering a construction site, and that would be usually outdoors. And we've come up with some unique ways of covering that, because as we'll show in a moment, you can't put a thermal camera in an outdoor environment due to direct infrared sunlight. I think we may be, just as we've got to the bottom of this slide, I'm hoping we're going to pop a little poll up. Let's just give it a second. There we go. So if you can have a click through that poll, I'll give you sort of 20 seconds or so, and then we can close that and move on to the next slide. Bear with us. Seeing the votes coming in, it's good. Nice to see. I'll give it 5 more seconds or so if you haven't already done so. Excellent. Thanks for voting on that one. Right, let's just run through the 3 typical scenarios or types of product that we promote within ITSL. There's obviously a number of variants around these, but typically we have an entry-level solution like the one that you're seeing on camera at the moment, on the video at the moment. And this is typically around about an 8-inch tablet device, which is for single person scanning. So this means that the individual is responsible for walking up to the device, looking into it, checking that they're not over temperature, and then moving on and carrying on with their day. They can operate an entry system. So these, as you can see by this image, this is placed on a desk stand, so it can be mounted on a reception desk or somewhere within the entrance. They can be floor mounted. We can provide a stand to keep it at a good height from the floor. And they can be placed on, say, a gate entry, like when you walk into a building before going through or being allowed access through a gate. This checks that you are not over temperature and then allows access to the gate. It has a visible alarm, an audible alarm, and will provide you with some basic software to remote log in and see the reporting in the background, so that you can see how many people have been scanned, and of course how many have shown, if any, have shown over temperature. And then we move on to the mid-range device. The mid-range is probably it's probably been our most popular because it captures more than one person. So you can have groups of 5 to 10 people walking past it, and it will instantly see the individuals, it will instantly see the temperature and show if there's an over temperature detected. It picks up incredibly quickly, and you're going to see it in the live demo in a moment. This is the camera that we're using, and you will see how quick it will pick up an individual and how quick it will show the temperature. It has mask detection, so it can tell whether the person is wearing a mask or not, and we can even add a setting into it that states that you need to wear a mask if that environment requires so. Again, visual and audible alarms, and that comes from the camera, so it will state over temperature, it will state please wear a mask, sorry. And then the software, which is provided with a PC, shows you a reporting structure, shows you footfall, etc. And you can log 4 cameras into that piece of software at any one time. So you can then remotely watch a number of devices. These are best managed by somebody, say for instance, on a reception desk of a building, because the person being scanned might not necessarily know they're actually being scanned. And then we move on to the professional level camera. So this is the high end. This is for large groups. This will count approximately up to 30 people within 16 milliseconds. So it will take larger groups of people, instantly show temperatures, capture them as they're walking past, utilizing enterprise level software. And again, this is for the bigger environments that require much more management. So enterprise level software, multiple cameras, multiple networking, and can record the video as well. You can even log in to the system via a mobile device, a tablet, a mobile phone, and monitor the system via that route. And I think before we move on, there's another poll going to pop up, if we can launch that one. There we go. So we'll give you, not timing it, but we'll give you about 20 seconds. Excellent, we've got some coming in. I'll give it another 5 seconds just to make sure that everyone's had plenty of time. And we'll go and carry on. Thank you, everyone.
We'll just show the results first. Get those out there. So they 50% of the votes went for around about 5K for a solution, which is interesting. So that takes us towards the mid-range camera category. Yes. So how accurate is the technology? The cameras themselves and the camera on the tablet all use the same sort of thermal image sensor, and those sensors themselves out to the outside help are all accurate to within 0.5 of a degree. That's quite standard industry-wide. The difference between the standalone cameras and the tablet is that the standalone cameras can use a reference point in their frame of image from something called a black body radiator, which gives them a known temperature, which we set on the camera. It's usually about 40 degrees, and that radiator maintains 40 degrees on that pane of glass that you see on the front of it. So the camera knows that point in the image is 40 degrees, and it uses that as a reference point to recalibrate the rest of the frame. So when that black body is used, that brings the accuracy closer in to plus or minus 0.3 degrees. The mid-range camera has that black body radiator as an optional extra, and the Pro camera comes with that bundled in. Right, so now it's time for a live demo. Are we ready on your end, Mr. Daniels?
We are indeed. So if you logged in.
There we are. So we have the software here running in Mr. Daniels' house. We see our lovely assistant here walking up to the camera, and there she is detected between 36.1 and 36.3. We can see the box has been drawn round the face, and the cross has been made on her forehead, where it's detected where the forehead is.
You'll note how quick, as soon as Vicky turns back round to the camera, it's using facial detection. So it instantly, as soon as she turns round, recognizes there's a face, and then it starts capturing the temperature, captures an image at the bottom, and she's now just playing with a lighter. Don't recommend that every day, but just to show how quick the temperature will change, and just show you how the halo changes instantly in color as soon as it's detected over the temperature that we've set. Obviously, if she was up at 45 degrees, we'd probably have a problem. If, as you see, when it takes the image at the bottom, if Vicky was to turn around and did have a temperature, she would then be placed in a box on the right-hand side and have a red box around her. Because she's just playing with the lighter, obviously it's just detecting a change in temperature. It's not snapshotting that. But if she was snapshotted at the beginning as having an overtemp, she would be moved over to the right. And you'll have the, as you can see on the right-hand side there, you'll have the event list. So you would see a record of anyone and any face that has shown as an over temperature. Within the background, there's software running that creates a full reporting structure. I must stress, I know David's probably going to drop this screen for a moment, but I must stress this is a demo unit. This is in my summer house in my garden, so it's not on permanently. It's not seeing lots of people all the time, so there is nothing really within that report, but you would see a level of indication of the amount of people scanned, the temperatures of those people, the amount of people showing over temperature, the times and dates, etc., as to when they were shown as an over temperature, and you'd get a snapshot of that person as well. And you can then set the system to email a report at a given set of timings to a given set of email addresses or group email addresses, and therefore you will see constant reporting within the system. The systems that are out there in the marketplace, I mentioned the gym one earlier, that sees an enormous amount of footfall, and of course the reporting structure in the background for that has a lot of information. Thankfully, and I don't believe they've actually come across an over temperature yet. I think people are being very sensible, and they haven't had any cases in that particular environment. But everyone in that gym does like the system, because of course they feel confident and comfortable that everyone coming in has had an immediate scan, and that, like I say, they haven't had any symptoms within that area anyway. So it's a good line of defense to make sure that they're seeing everybody come through the door. Mr. Savage, are you looking at the other part of the software, or are we moving on from the live demo?
Let's do a little overview of what we see on the screen here, I suppose. Yeah, on the left-hand side, we see the thermal image from the camera. So we can see the different colors represent different temperatures that the sensor's seeing. And you can, and that shape is inside the blue square you see on the right-hand side. So the visible light camera is a slightly wider field of view than the thermal. So that's important when you're framing the image, is to make sure that the people passing by the camera are passing by well within that blue boundary. If I just drive here, we can see where we can have up to 4 cameras.
I'm just showing the thermal on the left as you'd mentioned it.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
And the camera itself, all cameras have the sweet spot where they are accurate within that 0.5 or 0.3 degree. 10 meters away or 5 meters away in this scenario, it's a bit less accurate, because this camera is set up for accuracy between 1 and 4 meters. So that's why you see the temperature changes as Vicky approaches the camera. So that's an important consideration when sighting. So we only have 1 camera set up in this demo, but you can see here you can monitor 4 cameras at once, and obviously the snapshots of faces from all those 4 cameras would turn up down here at the bottom, and anyone who is over temperature, again from all four, would be here on the right, and you'll be able to see what camera caught them as well. We can... Yeah, so I think that concludes our live demo. I don't think we'll go into the dashboard because, as Mr. Daniels has said, there's not much data in there for us to look at. So we can hold the demo there. If there's any questions, please let us know in the Q&A. We can come through to those now. So I'll just give you a few seconds to ask if you've got any questions about what we're seeing here on screen. Okay, so we have a question about, I think it's facial recognition. So for known subjects passing, can we have unique identifiers or ID numbers or recognition? The answer is yes. Certainly on the top level solution that comes bundled in. With this Advantech mid-range solution, that's an optional extra for facial recognition. It can be a bit of a sensitive subject, and there's some data governance around that. But essentially, yes, you can start recording faces for things like time and attendance, or if you have a database of images of staff, or we worked with a school where they can upload a database of faces for students. They can do a time and attendance piece, and also if someone's over temperature, and you may have, say, 2,000 people working in your building, it can pop up with the name of that person, so that if they've come in, they've been read as over temperature, but maybe haven't stopped and gone in, you can go and find that person more quickly. So it's likely that your security person or receptionist or someone in the facilities doesn't know that person by name or by sight because you're a larger organisation. Okay, I think that's all the questions we have on this section. So if we just scoot back to our presentation. So we've got some, like an FAQ essentially, questions, factors and concerns. So I'll start off. Mr. Daniels, yeah. First question, so what do I do if there's a positive temperature? This question does come up a lot, and we say it's important that you write a policy around what you're going to do in this situation. So to think about it well in advance of even ordering a camera, to think about how you're going to use the technology and set up some rules around it. That policy should be sent out to all building users in advance if possible. If not, it's a case of installing signage and informing people as they turn up if you're dealing with visitors. If there is a positive reading or a temperature reading outside of the bounds that you set, because that is down to you, we recommend taking a second reading after 5 minutes, either with the same camera to allow for an equalization of temperature if they've come in from outside, or using a handheld device. And non-contact.
Oh, you broke up a little there, Mr. Savage. What was that last piece?
Oh, saying a handheld non-contact device.
Right.
Shall
I take the next one? Where should we install?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's always suggested, obviously, as close to the entrance of the building as possible. So the more you manage the temperatures of people coming into the building before they get far into it, obviously that makes sense. Location dependent, not outside. I did mention this earlier. So infrared technology, obviously, it's affected by sunlight. So they're not accurate if they're placed on in an outside environment. I did mention that we've come up with different ways of dealing with this. We have been working with a construction site to set up, if you imagine containers, like the big shipping containers, a door open at each end, building a little sort of reception cabin in there, placing a camera within that environment so you walk in, be scanned through the tunnel, back out the other side, and a cubicle for a receptionist or a security officer to make sure that somebody doesn't continue if their standards over temperature. It states just above head height here, so that would be for the dome camera solutions or the group camera solutions. We can install on wall mount on the ceiling, hanging from a pole. But if it's head height or just above head height, so it can visibly see the face, that makes more sense. And the tablet camera will be mounted, as I mentioned, either on the desk stand on a reception area or on a floor stand. We have created a solution to be able to mount it to a wall. So if you're walking into a space and there's a wall, we have created a solution to mount it to that also. I'll quickly run on to the installation timings, just because that works with that last question. Around 2 to 3 hours. It is obviously dependent on your environment. So if we need to do so, we will do a site survey. But obviously your individual environment will determine the timescales for access, height restrictions, physical wall structures. Can we run the cables in the wall, outside of the wall? But for the small camera, the tablet camera, that's a much quicker installation. That's a case of building the required stand. Typically can be done within an hour. So quite a simple setup.
Sure. We did have a question come in around installation time, and can it be done after hours, which is an interesting point. Yes, it can. Yeah, we can work extended hours, 6 to 11, and oftentimes if it's in a public area, then for health and safety reasons, we do need to do it outside of hours as well because of access. So yes, we can do it out of hours. Can it attach to my network? Yes, it can. Doesn't have to though, not mandatory. You're going to get probably better use out of it if you do connect it to your network, and it allows us to remotely support you as a customer and help you with your questions, setups, updates, and so on. But it can operate standalone if required, or if IT governance can be a problem, or you have a change control board that only meets monthly. We can set it up standalone if needed. I'll run on to the power piece. So is power needed at the camera sites? Tablet solutions, yes, but we don't see that as a problem as often. It's going to be sited on a turnstile or on a reception desk where there's going to be power available anyway. When the tablet is mounted on a floor stand, all the cables exit nicely at the bottom, so they can run off to the closest wall outlet or a floor box if you have those. The body cameras, as I call them, do not need power. They're powered from the network switch. So if your organisation has PoE switches, then they'll be powered from that. If not, we'd supply it with a power injector or a switch from us that can power them. So we can move on. Enter more Q&A. So there have been some more questions that have come in.
There's one suggesting how long it takes for the camera to read an accurate temperature measurement. All cameras will detect sub 1 second. The tablet is the slowest, but it's still under 1 second. The middle range, as you've seen, detects immediately as soon as it sees a recognized face, a facial image. It recognizes the temperature, and so does the professional. The professional is the quickest. I mentioned earlier 30 milliseconds, but they are all within 1 second, so they are very quick.
We have another one. Is it best practice to record video, future reference, and do these solutions have that capability? Well, one of them does at this stage, so I'll answer it in two parts. The tablet does not have the ability to record video. The mid-range camera, we can attach a network video recorder to that, but it's not an integrated system as the professional one is. The professional top range camera uses a suite of enterprise software, and it is really part of a wider security system that can be used, and that will has numerous ways of recording the video on servers, on SANs, on desktops, however you want to do it. So we recommend the professional camera for a video recording and security solution, and the other two for beaver scanning on the whole only. Okay, I think that's the end of the questions, if no one has any more to add.
No more coming up. There were a good bunch of questions though.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. So, well, thank you from us. There's another short poll to come on, please rate us on how you feel this webinar was. All feedback is valuable to us, or if you have any feedback, please put it in the Q&A. We'll keep that to one side and use to improve what we do in the future. But please take down our contact details here. We'll send this out in a follow-up email to you, where you'll get a link to, I think it's YouTube, with a recording of this webinar. But yeah, let's please keep talking and get in touch if what we've said is of interest.
A little thank you from me as well. Thanks everyone for attending. It's a good session. Enjoyed that, and the feedback's coming in quite nice. I'm thinking it was not a bad thermal webinar. I look forward to any more questions, and as David Savage said, please do get in touch with our direct details, as you can see on screen, or follow up on the back of the follow-up email. Thank you again.
Cool. Thanks everyone. Bye-bye.